Welcome back to our guide on importing a character into Super Smash Bros. 64. Today, we're going to work on Chapter 0, Conceptualization and Setup. Why Chapter 0? Well, because numbers start at 0, especially if you're a programmer, but mainly because we're not going to be doing any real work on the model. This is going to be setup and design. In this chapter, we're going to walk through the initial conceptualization and preparation steps. All efforts here will have nothing to do with coding or modeling. Basically, what we're going to do is create a design document as well as look at different sets of software we need to perform the process. First things first, which character are we going to import? Well, for me, and for the purpose of this guide, I'm going to work on importing Brian from Quest 64. I remember playing Quest 64 as a child, and whilst I know it had a lot of issues, I actually did enjoy running around the open world, especially when I had the ability to run away from most battles. Since I have my character in mind, what I'm going to do is sit down and design a simple concept for him. While thinking of the concept for Brian, we need to remember the limitations of the system we're using. We're not generating a character for Super Smash Bros. Brawl or Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We are specifically making something that would work in Super Smash Bros. 64. That means we're looking at a limited range of A moves, no charge moves, 3 B moves, and potentially 1 or 2 taunts. This means that what we can achieve is greatly limited compared to what came later in the Smash series timeline. With this in mind, we also have to consider the kinds of moves we are generating. While it is possible to create a character like Steve from Minecraft in Super Smash Bros. 64, that will require a lot of coding, and that's not something I'm actually willing to do. So, with that in mind, the characters we actually generate need to fit into the Smash Bros. 64 mold to an extent. With those limitations in mind, when it comes to Brian, I've mainly only put a lot of thought into his B moves. Yes, I know he has a staff, and for his A moves, I plan on incorporating staff strikes, maybe some kind of bashing maneuvers, something like a twirl, but overall, for me, when I'm coming to his A moves, it's going to be some form or variation of him moving or spinning around. The B moves, however, is where more creativity in my mind comes to play. For the B moves, oftentimes we would need extra models, such as Fox using his blaster or Link throwing a bomb. It will require some form of extra coding, some form of new model or restriction, and that's something I need to consider while coding and making my character for import. For Brian, his A moves, again, are going to basically be him swinging his staff. If I do decide to incorporate some magic, I'll cross that bridge when we get there. For his B moves, I want to have him throw a boulder for his B move. Anyone that's played Quest 64 knows all about throwing boulders. For his up B move, I envision borrowing something similar to what Hero did, where he throws a wind gust below him and flies up into the sky. And for his down B move, I haven't put much thought into it. We'll get there when we get there. Now that I have all this written out inside of a small design document, I'm going to save this, and I'm going to start looking at the next part of this guide, which is going to be setup. Given Super Smash Bros. 64 characters require a lot of work, we're going to also need a lot of software to help us. We're going to need software dedicated to working on 2D images. We're going to need software dedicated to sound. We're going to need software for 3D modeling. And we're going to need the software for importing. With all these in mind, what I recommend is using GIMP for creating your character textures. I recommend using Blender 2.9 for modeling and rigging. I recommend downloading and learning about HexEdit as well as a little bit of information on how hexadecimal works, because coding will be done through assembly language. I also recommend downloading Golden Editor. This is the primary gateway into modifying the Smash 64 ROM. All links to software will be provided in the description below. Once you have downloaded said software and set them up, you are ready to begin creating your character. In the next part, we're going to work on designing the model itself. We're going to look at planning it out, as well as importing it into Blender, using GIMP to modify textures, and looking to start making a model that would be suitable for importing into Super Smash Bros. 64.